students, today we will be discussing Kautilya's theory of foreign policy and their applications. The objective behind today's discussion is to give you an insight into the 6 forms of foreign policy and how these foreign policies can be applied under different circumstances. We would also learn how, by using different strategies, an inferior, superior ruler can gain dominance in international relations. The entire discussion is divided into 3 broad segments. First, we would understand the 6 forms of foreign policy. Second, the applications of these foreign policies. And thirdly, the role of ambassadors and spies in foreign policy. Now, Kautilya's Arthashastra is considered to be the greatest composition in political science in ancient India. It is a book of political realism which explains how the political world actually works than that which ought to be. In fact, Kautilya, being a political realist par excellence, uses different strategies to ensure that the Vijikshu, the world emperor, truly remains the dominant one. Kautilya's state has twofold objectives. 1. Preservation of the state from internal disorder, providing internal security and general well-being of the population, and secondly, acquisition of territories by expansion through different methods of foreign policy. And it is the Mandala theory which is the basis of Kautilya's ideas on foreign policy. Now, the Mandala theory is based on 12 kingdoms or circles of states. Mandala means circle in Sanskrit. Now, in these 12 circles, the immediate neighbor is the enemy of the Vijikshu or the central conqueror, and alternate kingdoms are friends. However, students, this circle of 12 kingdoms is not a static one but dynamic. The relationship between the Vijikshu, the conqueror, as well as other states keep changing. In other words, there is no concept of permanent friendship and permanent enmity in international relationship. And the king in the central position should keep on expanding his powers with the different foreign policy principles so that the other kingdoms should be reduced and become a part of the world emperor, the Vijikshu. So, the purpose of foreign policy is to ensure that the right principles are followed at the right point of time. Now, what are these principles? Kautilya enunciates 6 types of foreign policies. They are peace, war, marching, neutrality, alliance, and double policy. Let us come to them one by one. Treatment with pledges is peace or sandhi. Offensive operation is war or vigraha. Indifference is neutrality or asana. Making preparations for war is marching or yana. Seeking the protection of another kingdom is alliance or samsarya. Making peace with one kingdom and war with another is double policy or dvaidi bhava. Sandhi. Sandhi refers to peace or agreement under certain conditions. The aim of peace varies from one situation to another situation based on the variety of objectives. Firstly, it enables the king to enjoy the fruits of his own acquisition, promote welfare, develop his state, and prevent any conflict in the neighborhood. Secondly, a king can also make a peace treaty to strengthen his alliances. Thirdly, he can purchase peace by giving a hostage and an honorable opportunity to pursue his own interests. Fourthly, peace can also be a part of dual policy or dvaidi bhava. Now, there are different kinds of sandhi or peace. Dandupanta sandhi refers to surrender of troops. Koshupanta sandhi refers to surrender of treasury. Deshupanta sandhi refers to surrender of territories. These are the 3 kinds of sandhi or peace. Coming next to Vigraha or war. War refers to hostilities between kingdoms. Now, wars can be of different kinds depending on the methods and the strategies in use. Kautilya refers to three kinds of war. They are Prakasha Yuddha, Kuta Yuddha and Tushnima Yuddha. When the Vijikshu is superior in strength and the season and the terrain is all favorable for the Vijikshu, he should resort to Prakasha Yuddha. However, students, if the Vijikshu is not superior to the enemy, the terrain is also not favorable, the season is not favorable, Kuta Yuddha is best strategy. Tushnima Yuddha is described as secret or silent warfare, where discreet means are used and there is no noticeable conflict between states. After war comes victories. The type of victories. Kautilya refers to three kinds of victories: Dharma Vijay, Lobha Vijay and Ashura Vijay. In Dharma Vijay, the aggressor in pursuit of victory contends with mere obedience from the vanquished. It's a victory of righteousness. Lobha Vijay refers to greed or profit, where the aggressor satisfies by looting and acquiring wealth, land from the conquered territory. The third is Ashura Vijay, where one satisfies himself by being demoniacal and slaughtering inhabitants. Kautilya warns the king that it is very important to identify the aggressor's intent of conquest, the motive behind the conquest, and accordingly the right foreign policy should be pursued. Coming to the third one, Ashana, which is staying quiet. But that is also for a purpose. It is the state in which one is to wait in the hope that the enemy would get weaker and find himself in difficulties or calamities, get involved in the war in the front, or one would be stronger than the enemy. Now, this pause or staying quiet may be of a shorter duration for some improvement. The pause can be extended if there has to be a wait for the right opportunity and deliberately not choosing to act because conditions may not be favorable. Coming to Yana, which refers to marching or expedition. The policy of Yana is clear and explicit, which implies that it should be surely persuaded and followed only when there is one is strong than one's own enemy. Normally, Yana and Vigraha are parallel, but in Yana, one should be completely dominant because you are marching on an expedition and you should be absolutely confident that you are about to win. Samsarya, which refers to seeking the shelter from a king or in a particular fort. This policy is particularly recommended for a weak or an inferior ruler who is attacked, threatened, or is about to be attacked by a powerful enemy. Samsarya confronts to the status of a protege. That means you are assured of protection from a stronger ruler. However, staying under an alliance of a strong ruler is not the right perception. Rather, that opportunity, that position should be used in order to strengthen one's capabilities and strike with the right time. But if none opportunity is available, it is best for a weak king to surrender before a strong ruler. But then he should always be watchful for the right opportunity to strike back. Dvaiti Bhava is double policy, which means where you are seeking sandhi with one king, peace, and you are engaging in war with another king. So, what type of a king should adopt this policy? A king who is equally strong to an enemy but cannot win the battle without an additional strength. So, you cannot fight two wars at the same time. So, it is prudent to have a war with one enemy and make peace with another. Let us come to the applications of these 6 forms of foreign policy, and Kautilya has described in detail how each of these policies can be applied at the right time, in the right frame of moment, so that both inferior and superior rulers can gain advantage to it. Now, whoever is inferior to another shall make peace, but if somebody is superior, he shall engage in war. Whoever thinks that no enemy can hurt me, nor am I strong enough to destroy my enemy, shall observe neutrality. Whoever is possessed of necessary means shall march against the enemy. Whoever is devoid of necessary strength to defend himself shall seek the protection of another. Whoever thinks that help is necessary to work out an end shall make peace with one and wage war with another. This is how 6 forms of foreign policy can be applied. Let us move into a detailed understanding of the applications of these 6 forms of foreign policy. A wise king should apply that particular form of policy which in his opinion will enable him to build fort, construct buildings, commercial roads, engage in plantation, villages. That means that the policy should be absolutely in favor of him. But he should also harass similar works of his opponent. So he should be becoming prosperous but not his neighbor or enemy. If any 2 kings hostile to each other and finds that the time of achieving the results are equal, they should never engage in war, rather they should go in for peace. Third, no king shall keep that form of policy which causes him loss of profit from his own work, but does not lead to a loss of his enemy, because that is deterioration, that's wrong. But if any 2 kings hostile to each other and deteriorating expect to acquire equal amount of wealth at the same point of time, they shall definitely make peace with each other. Kautilya is very clear in his calculations with different states. When the advantages derivable from peace and war are the same, one should prefer peace than war, because war leads to loss of wealth and there lot of people, armed forces may be killed. However, the same holds in case of neutrality and war. Now, if there is an option to choose between double policy and alliance, a wise king should always choose double policy, because in double policy you are engaging in war with one and peace with another. Therefore, you can keep an ally at the same time annex kingdoms. One should make an alliance with a king who is stronger than one's neighbor or enemy. But if it so happens that you do not have such a strong ally, you should ingratiate with one's enemy. How are you going to do that? You are going to supply your enemy with army, land, giving a part of your territory and keeping yourself aloof. But there can be no greater evil, Kautilya says, than alliance with a king of considerable power, unless actually one is attacked by one's enemy. So you should not be adopting this policy unless it is a dire constraint for you. Agreements of peace should be made with equal and definitely with superior kings. An inferior king should always be attacked. A powerless king should behave like a conquered king towards his immediate enemy, but when he finds that the right time has come for his own ascendancy, due to some problems in the neighboring enemy's kingdom, internal troubles, or there are some problems which are vexing his enemy, or his enemy is not well, then this particular kingdom, under the pretense of performing some expiatory rites from beneficial work to avert the danger of his enemy, he may get out of the enemy's courts, and when he is in his own territory, he should go to see his suffering enemy, and when he is near his enemy, if he gets the right opportunity, he should murder that enemy and conquer that state. Kautilya was ruthless in terms of applications of these foreign policy principles. A king situated between 2 powerful kingdoms. Now, normally we feel that this inferior king can be attacked by 2 kingdoms, but the right policy will help this inferior king to become powerful. Now, what can such a king who is located between 2 powerful kingdoms do? He shall seek protection from the stronger of the 2, or from one of them on whom he can rely, or he can make peace with both of them on equal terms. So, both the options are available. Then the next application comes in. He begins to set one kingdom against the another one, by saying the other one is a tyrant, the other one is trying to ruin him, and then he causes dissension between them. Now, please note these 2 kingdoms are actually friends. Alternate kingdoms are friends. Now this middle kingdom is actually trying to show dissension between these two kingdoms, and when they are divided, Kautilya says that this middle kingdom, who actually was an inferior kingdom, would try to attack both these kingdoms because now they are disunited, and try to put them down one by one, and he becomes absolutely powerful so far as these two kingdoms were concerned. Now, if a superior king discards the proposal of an inferior king, which may happen, in that case the latter king, that is the inferior king, should take the attitude of a conquered king and play the role of an inferior king till he gets the right opportunity. When the inferior king is all submissive, peace should be made with him. But when provoked by causing him troubles, an inferior king like wildfire should attack his enemy. It does not mean an inferior king will always remain a weak king. The right proposals and the right policies will definitely help him to become a superior king. When a king in peace with other kings find that his subjects are greedy, impoverished, oppressed, but yes, these subjects are not ready to revolt against the king. The king, despite being superior, should never attack such a kingdom because the people, the subjects, are so very united, and therefore it's wise to make a treaty with such a kingdom. When one of the two kingdoms are at war with each other and they're equally in trouble because of internal problems, but then finds that the trouble of the enemy is much larger than my own trouble, so he should ensure that he has resources, he can easily attack, but definitely not going for war. He should actually sue for peace. When either in peace or in war, a king finds neither loss nor profit, he should go in for peace. So if there is neither loss nor profit, it's advantageous to go in for peace. When the king finds that the troubles of his enemy is irremediable, the king, though of inferior power, should definitely march against the enemy, because that enemy is full of trying to solve his internal problems. When a king finds himself threatened by imminent danger, troubles of all kinds, he should, though superior, seek the protection of another king. When a king is absolutely confident of achieving the desired results by making peace with one and waging war with another, he should definitely go with Dvaiti Bhava. An essential part of Kautilya's foreign policy model is the role of ambassadors. Now, in the Kautilyan model, there are two kinds of ambassadors. One, the Dut or the messenger, and the second one is Char or spies. Now, Kautilya believes that spies should also be spied upon. There should be counter spying because you should not be trusting anyone. Now, the Duta actually delivers messages, but the Char takes information and delivers it to the king. Now, what is the role of ambassador in foreign policy? An ambassador is an envoy or an agent who is a very critical part of the foreign policy application. An ambassador, because of his superior personality and intelligence, can change unfavorable conditions into favorable ones. Role of spies is even more important and crucial. It is the duty of the spy to survey the strength of the country where he is assigned. He shall make friendship with enemy's officers, those in charge of various offices, cities, counterparts, track information, deliver it to the king. He should also discover the size and area of the enemy's forts, state, kingdoms, the type of people, precious things, and all kinds of vantage points. A spy can be deployed for various types of works, but definitely the main task of the spy is to procure information. Now, operation of a spy. A spy has to take in various kinds of roles in order to operate and get information. Getting information is not easy. Now, what are the various disguise can a spy take? The number one, fraudulent disciple. Disciples of men of religion and will not be suspected. So, a spy, a chor, can behave like a disciple and track information. Farmers. A chor can take the guise of a farmer. He can get a lot of information about crop growing, prosperity, what is happening in the kingdom, regarding food storage, security, etc. Third type of disguise that he can take is that of a merchant. Now you know merchant can easily slip into other neighboring kingdoms, mix with the local population, with the business community and track information. Fourth kind of disguise that they can take is that palmist and astrologers. People go to them when they are passing through a crisis time and they give up a lot of crucial information, where this astrologer can use this information, and this astrologer can behave like a secret agent and try to go and create a favorable opinion about an officer of the neighboring king and try to say and predict he has all the traits of a good king, and then it would be easier to get information from this official against that particular king. A cook or a waiter operating in the royal household, getting information and then passing on information. Widows are the least to be suspected. Widows were also used as spies because nobody is going to suspect a widow as a spy. Beggars, very difficult to detect, but they can find right information living on the streets and nobody pays any attention to them, and hence it is easier to work in the disguise of a beggar. Now ambassadors are an integral part of foreign policy. The ambassador, once he receives the information from the Doot or the Char, he is to send his reports through a cipher code in a coded form, following which the Vijikshu is to decide which form of the foreign policy he is to apply. So out of the 6 forms of foreign policy, the Vijikshu now takes a decision. Let us come to the analysis of these 6 forms of foreign policy. We have already understood that Kautilya was a realist par excellence, and all these strategies were workable in crucial situations. He had strategies both for a superior ruler as well as an inferior ruler. An inferior ruler with the right strategy can become a superior ruler. He also believed that it was a king's duty to seek material gain, spiritual good and pleasures. Kautilya also thinks that a king can attain all these goals, and in order to attain them he should have wealth, he should create a good band of armed force, but definitely he should also conquer enemies and go in for territorial expansion. The size of the state matters in international relations. Kautilya's diplomacy, mandala and foreign policy have widespread implications not only during the Mauryan regime but even after that. It is considered to be a practical manual in international relations. In fact, Kautilya's principles of foreign policy were quite pragmatic from the perspective of international relations and highly contemporary in terms of applications and aims. Thank you.